There's also going to be a trained staff here, obviously, to respond to any issues that arise. So if there's any overdoses, they can be dealt with early and preventatively here.
The first ever drug consumption room in the UK will open its doors in Glasgow on Monday. The concept was approved in September 2023, but numerous delays means that the project has taken 16 months to finally become a reality.
What we want to promote initially, absolutely, is a safer injecting environment where people can feel welcomed, where people can feel not judged, not stigmatized, and where they'll get the support they need in order to provide a good alternative to using in the desperate spaces that they use at the moment, which is in car parks, alleyways, lanes and alleys, people's closes in the bin areas. So as an initial focus, we really need to be realistic about where people are at the moment and what they want. And I think selling the harm reduction injecting space to them, but in due course, once they've built up some trust with us, a relationship with us, they'll hopefully engage with the wider services we can offer here.
The facility at the Thistle in Hunter Street in Glasgow will be manned by trained staff from 9 in the morning to 9 at night and will open all 365 days of the year. And Glasgow City Council claim it will provide a safe environment for users.
One of the things that we're going to be doing is obviously providing clean equipment for folk to use. So that's a typical tray there that we'll be handing out to folk to use, obviously safely in the facility, or as safe as possible. So that's the main kind of using space, because this is the area we want to do some of that aftercare work and speaking to folk, and we want to keep people here as long as they can. So we'll be providing teas, coffees, and a lot of our external agencies will be based in here so that we can chat to folks. So we've got people like our Housing First team, our Benefit Support team, we'll have social workers and stuff like that as well. And indeed, if folk want to start talking about their journey to recovery and stuff, we'll be having those conversations either in here or in the chat room.
It comes as Scotland continues to face Europe's highest drug deaths figures amid record high numbers in recent years. New stats showed that 833 deaths were a direct result of drug abuse in the first 9 months of 2024 in Scotland. But while Glasgow City Council are confident the consumption rooms will be a success, some who deal with users on a daily basis say more should be spent on rehabilitation, and they are worried about the potential lack of privacy.
Well, overall, they're nothing more than palliative care. They're an admission of failure, really. From what we can see, we're going to be spending up to £4 million a year on these drug consumption rooms, and yet we're only spending less than £1 million on rehab. I just think there's an imbalance there. We're enabling people to use drugs safely, and that's been put forward as compassionate, and I just wonder, is it actually compassionate if there's no real opportunity for people to get rehab or to get free from their dependency? So in an ideal world, you would have equal access to both drug consumption rooms and rehabs, but we don't live in an ideal world, and unfortunately we are putting these harm reduction interventions and giving them precedence over services and over investment into services that can actually help people get clean and sober. I just think, if we ask ourselves, is it compassionate? I've actually visited a purpose-built facility in Copenhagen called H17, and it was not compassion that I witnessed. We're talking about glass boxes of people fully exposed, men and women, not segregated, injecting in their groins, naked from the waist down, in various states of absolute distress, trying to find a vein, and what I witnessed was, complete and utter, and what I felt was spiritual devastation. Emotionally I was very disturbed for 2 or 3 days after it, primarily because the staff were somewhat nonchalantly scrolling on their phones. They were there in case of an emergency, but they weren't actually, there didn't seem to be a compassionate vibe, like the main sort of solace that I took from that visit that day was that I was assured that one young woman in particular that I noticed that was so distressed watching her digging for a vein actually in her groin, naked, fully exposed to everybody, was that I was assured that should that young woman want rehab, she could be transferred within 24 hours. Now, I took some solace from that, you know, that system offered that, but that's not what's available in our system in Scotland. You know, we've got less than 140 rehab beds for the whole of Scotland, and that's for people with both alcohol and drug problems. So I can't even console myself with that fact, you know, that I could in Copenhagen. So yeah, you know, this argument that somehow people are uneducated or being ignorant towards or stigmatising drug users, I think it's a very emotionally manipulative argument, and I don't even think it's true. I think true compassion would be to help people get their lives back and help them get well again.
Drug consumption rooms have been in operation for many years across Europe, including in countries like Germany, Spain and Portugal. But many of those nations now believe that the facility no longer helps tackle the drugs problem and are shutting them down.
My concern around drug consumption rooms is not just the imbalance, it's also the evidence base. You know, there would have been one time where I would have advocated because I felt the evidence base was strong. I don't feel as strongly about it now. You know, I've looked further into the literature and there is questions around a lot of the literature from the original Vancouver sites, Insight, the original one was called. And there's a lot of questionable data around self-reported data, drug activist groups and also drug activist funding that's sort of, you know, and also we're in the situation now where we see areas like Vancouver and Portland, Oregon and, you know, Portugal and San Francisco, they're shutting these places down. You know, they're shutting down the drug consumption rooms. Portugal last year agreed to shut 10 of them down, and they're not doing that because they're working. They're doing that because they've brought really high, you know, problems to the area where they're open. So I just think it's a bit mad that Scotland wants to do something that other places have trialled and have found extremely wanting to the fact that they're now rolling it back and stopping it. So all of those places that I mentioned are pulling back on it and they're shutting them down. Why are we opening one? It's just...
While the debate over the value of drug consumption rooms and their value and longevity rages on, it's being claimed by some that the Scottish Government and Glasgow City Council are using the facility to score political points.
I think it's been political. I think it's been used as a political football for many, many years, and I also think it's a vanity project for certain people in Glasgow City Council. Like, they want to be seen to be opening the first, they want to be seen to be progressive. So I think there's a lot of different factors, but I think the main factor is political.
I think this has been a long journey for Glasgow, so it's not just a PR exercise. We've been on a 10-year journey demonstrating through proper evidence base that this is something that will really make a difference to those that community who are publicly injecting in our city. So it's based on clinical evidence, and indeed it's had political will as well behind that, and cross-party political will, I must say. It's not just a Scottish Government intervention, there's been cross-party support for this as well. So I wouldn't agree with that position, and I think it is something that it's not going to be a silver bullet. We're in no way saying that this will be the one initiative that will make the difference. This has to be part of a multi-layered element of services that work towards that ultimate goal of making sure that we reduce the amount of drug-related deaths and indeed offer folks routes into recovery.